there guys, how are we doing? My name's Boomy and you're watching my channel Boomy Reactions. Now today guys, we've got another video from Jacked History. So I feel like it's been far too long since I watched one of these videos and I do really enjoy them. I love his rants. I love his sweary rants and his cursing. So today's video has been requested by one of my wonderful patrons. This is from Dr. Mobius. And Dr. Mobius says, hey Boomy, here is another Jacked History video. And this video is how the Mafia built Las Vegas. Bugsy Siegel and the Mafia, Las Vegas origins. Okay, I did not realize that the Mafia built Las Vegas. I associate it more with kind of like the Mormons, Salt Lake City kind of thing. I would normally associate the Mafia with the more kind of northeastern kind of states. Maybe completely wrongly. Might be a really ignorant thing to say or very naive. But yeah, I always associate them with, you know, the bigger cities in the northeast, like definitely New York. New York is obviously the main one. Chicago, Philadelphia, Detroit, those kind of regions. So I had no idea that the Mafia or the American Mafia had ties to Las Vegas. Interesting. Okay. I mean, I can't see why not. I can definitely see the appeal. Anyway, guys, let's crack on with the video. You know what I'm like, I do an awful lot of talking. If you're enjoying these reactions as well, my lovelies, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much. If you're interested, I have a Buy Me a Coffee account. That link is over here. And if you would like to help support my channel any further, I have a Patreon account. And if you want to check that out at all, that link is in the description just below there.
Well, cut it out, Peter.
I'm not doing that.
Cut this out.
Nope.
Cut this out, Peter. My name is Jack Mandeville, and this is Jacked History. I'm not a fan of Las Vegas, to be honest with you.
Oh.
And it's not because it was built by the Mafia, who we'll be covering in today's episode.
This is news to me.
It's because I've been there too much, mainly.
He's got a hair. It actually really suits him.
For work, and it's completely lost its luster for me.
Okay.
Just like my experience when I was there 2 weeks ago, in which every moment I didn't have a work obligation, I spent eating by myself and playing penny slots just to buy time until I could go to sleep at 9 p.m.
Oh, I'm not a gambler. I have quite an addictive personality to things like games and such. So I try and avoid vices like this. It wouldn't end well, but I can have a problem with the penny slot machines, and it's not the slot machines. It's literally those little, the little tiny ones in seaside arcades that you just put the 2p coin in, and you know it shuffles them. That's the extent of my gambling. I know I'm such a baddie, and I'm such a badass. Or the teddy bear claw machines. Yeah, I have an issue with those actually.
Once you go there enough, it starts becoming really gross to you. Have you ever been in a Vegas hotel casino sober at 3 or 4 in the morning when everyone's coming back from their night out?
Oh.
It's a goddamn zoo, and the only reason you're awake is because you have to go to work. There's some drunk couple dressed in their most baller attire walking back in after a heavy night of partying. The woman is barefoot and holding her 6-inch heeled shoes because she's completely given up on walking on them.
Naturally.
There's spilled drink stains all over her dress, mascara running down her face. The dude she's with has some sort of Edgar or alpaca haircut while wearing his sweat and drink stained apartment 9 shirt he bought at Kohl's before the trip.
I hate to say this, but Jack is describing most people returning from a town centre in the UK on a Friday and Saturday night at like 3 in the morning. This is normal sights for us. Coming back from the pub, or more often than it's a night out. Yep, your heels, they're just causing more problems, so off with them. That's it. You've got all your makeup slowly dripping down your face. We've all been there. We've all partied. Yes, it's not a pretty sight.
Rocking some bloodshot eyes.
Yeah.
They're clearly in the middle of a fight that probably hit its peak on their ride back from the club that some poor Uber driver who used to be a doctor in Pakistan had to listen to.
You say poor driver, yes, but it's always an interesting conversation to listen to. You can't help but earwig.
And it was probably over something stupid too. Like she smiled at a male bartender at the shitty club they just paid $50 to get into and pay for $20 well drinks all night.
Or she said thank you in far too much of an enthusiastic, flirty voice. Thank you.
Or he smiled at a female bartender. Whatever. And they're making their way back to their hotel room that they saved up all year to afford at their job as sales associates at the AT&T store back in Chatsworth, California. Because Vegas is the epitome of an epic travel trip for them, even though it's cheaper for them to actually fly to Venice, Italy than what they're paying to live it up at the Venetian. Then you look over and see some homeless guy who smells like shit and looks like Gary Busey sitting at a slot machine getting questioned by the hotel security. They have to walk the fine line of treating him with dignity and politely asking him to get the frick out of the hotel without him snapping and causing a scene. Anywho, today we're talking about how the Mafia built Las Vegas. Specifically, how gangster Bugsy Siegel had a vision to make a gambling mecca that would attract the most glamorous clientele in the world.
Now, Bugsy Siegel is a name I've not heard of before. Is he quite the celebrity in the Mafia world?
Unlike the Vegas of today, which is a haven for gutter slop and self-loathing, bald, semi-obese men with mustaches.
Well, selling it to me, Jack. I'm gonna book my next holiday at Las Vegas.
And how did I get the idea to do this episode? It's simple, really. I stayed at the Flamingo Hotel a couple weeks ago. The hotel mostly associated with Bugsy Siegel's Vegas dealings. And the second reason is I consume the hell out of Mafia material. Books, movies, TV shows, YouTube videos. It's been my thing pretty much my whole life.
I can only claim to have seen like a handful of those.
And the fact that I've only ever done one episode of this show about Mafia history is kind of baffling to me. Okay, let's lay the backdrop. As I've discussed in other episodes, the early 1900s Northeast American Atlantic was popping off. Immigrants from all over Europe were flooding into the area to make a new life for themselves. The Irish and Italians are two of the more notable ethnicities that came in. But with them also came a large number of Jews, mainly from Central and Eastern Europe. Baby, when you toss them all into a crammed place like New York City, you got yourself a Euro gumbo. And a tale as old as time that comes with massive immigration patterns, these people were mostly poor, desperate, and easily exploited by the dominant society they were in. That combination inevitably will lead to a criminal element when the newcomers can't depend on the authorities. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel was born into that New York in February of 1906 in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. The area today
He's quite a handsome chap, isn't he?
Mostly known for being occupied by stuffy white women and hipsters who can't afford to live in Manhattan, was filled with poor Italians, Irish, and Jews when Bugsy grew up there. It was a tough world, and you had to learn to be tough if you wanted to survive. Bugsy wasn't just tough, but from an early age, he showed clear signs of being a hard-to-control child. The young Siegel dropped out of school at an early age and had already built up a rap sheet and been involved in a slew of gang activity throughout his teenage years. It was in his young years that he met three names that would be associated with him for the rest of his life: Mo Sedway, Charles Lucky Luciano, and his closest friend, Meyer Lansky.
Luciano sounds familiar. I can't think why.
If there was an American Mafia Mount Rushmore, Luciano and Lansky are definitely making the cut.
Maybe that's why.
Also, it should be noted that he ran in circles with a young Al Capone. Peter, Al Capone, have you ever heard of that miscreant?
I have.
Oh yeah, you have? Name 3 of his albums. It was Luciano and Lansky's relationship that really got the mob thing going as we know it today. Luciano, an Italian, and Lansky, a Jew, were butt buddies, and Lansky admired the way the Italian kids stuck together through their ethnic ties. Lansky thought all the little Jewish hoodlums needed to do the same. And it just so happened he had befriended another Jewish boy who had already developed a reputation for mischief and violence. That was Bugsy. One thing to know about his nickname, it was in his teenage years that he received it. As the story goes, it was because of his tendency to go bugs with his temper and quickly resort to violence.
Oh, okay. I don't know whether that's a better nickname than what I was thinking. I was literally thinking Bugs Bunny, like, you know, that awkward phase at your early teen years where everyone's front teeth are just too big for them. And sometimes it can make kids look a little bit like not Roger Rabbit, Bugs Bunny. Or Roger Rabbit, sure.
The other thing to know is that he really hated the name.
Oh.
Like, he despised it. And anybody that knew him knew not to say it to his face. Just call him Ben.
Is he the inspiration for Bugsy Malone?
And those who didn't were in for a quick lesson if they called him that. Guys like Luciano and Lansky would develop into polished gangsters, meaning that they took on many traits you would see from legitimate business leaders.
Yeah.
But for guys like Bugsy, he was the muscle, the one willing to do the dirty work when the business talk wasn't working. Siegel was Lansky's Stalin to his Lenin. That's essentially what the Mafia was. It was a business.
Yeah.
A criminal one, yes, but many elements of it operated like a corporation thanks to big thinkers like Lansky and Luciano. But the one major thing that separates them from normal business is that when they need to, they will resort to violence. And while popular American history associates this period mostly with Italian mobsters, their rise to power wouldn't have happened without their alliance with the Jewish mobsters.
That's the name for the mob, isn't it? La Cosa Nostra, is it? And La Kosher Nostra.
You look over a little further, and there's the baller boy bachelor party group over at the craps table, all screaming way louder than they need to be over some winnings that are barely making up for their collective losses at the blackjack tables the night before. The smell of cologne coming from that table evens out the smell of shit coming from the homeless guy. The groom-to-be in the group doesn't know it yet, but he will have spent $2,000 of his own money for this boys' trip, and he'll be going into debt to give his bride the $50,000 dream princess wedding she wanted because she's a deadbeat who's addicted to TLC bride shows. Only
don't spend that much money on your wedding.
To get served with divorce papers 2 years into their marriage because she got really into crystals and horoscopes and ayahuasca trips that he paid for. And she got convinced that she needed to be single and find herself, which is just spiritual girl talk for I've never actually had anything tough to deal with in my life, so I have to make things tough for me and everyone around me.
That's a lot more insightful than what I was going to interpret that. It normally just translates to I want to go and sleep with other people.
If you look around even further, you see a dozen middle-aged Korean tourists dressed in tracksuits and wearing visors mobbed up on the penny slots, just ripping cigarette after cigarette as they go to Spin Town on the Buffalo Gold slot machines. The Koreans, by the way, are the least problematic people in the casino. They're actually sober. The only reason they're up and active is they're still working through the jet lag from their 11-hour and 20-minute flight the day before.
Oh, okay.
The Bugs and Meyer Jewish mob had arrived in New York City. While they participated in all the hot crimes of the day, racketeering, thefts, bootlegging, it was murder and gambling that were Siegel's true strengths as a criminal.
Oh.
The guy had no problem being a gun for hire, and he knew his way around gaming. The 1920s was a boom period for all mob activity. Like I mentioned in a previous episode, the money opportunities from Prohibition took these gangs from loosely affiliated street thugs to powerhouse criminal corporations in 1 decade. As the 1930s came, this up-and-coming generation of mobsters, mostly still in their 20s, had taken the reins of the underworld with the assassination of 2 of the older generation's mob bosses, Joe Massaria and Salvatore Maranzano. Fucking Italian names. We're not doing this over. Sources say that Bugsy Siegel was a gunman for both of these hits. The students were now the masters of crime. This new generation of mobsters were different. With leadership from guys like Luciano and Lansky, they created a system with strict rules in place to prevent infighting and gang warfare. They knew crime was a business, and high-profile violence was bad for business. So when they had to enforce the rules or take out somebody encroaching on their business, they called on guys like Ben Siegel and his Murder Inc. outfit to do the job. Murder Inc. was literally Siegel's business within the Mafia as a hired hitman. This
It wasn't really called Murder Inc., was it?
criminal enterprise ran from New York City to Los Angeles. To put it simply, the Italians in Lansky were running the business, but a lot of the Jews were doing the killing. Ironically, one of the rules set in place for the Italian Mafia was that members had to be of 100% Italian ancestry, which meant Lansky and Siegel couldn't become official members. But make no mistake, the two Jewish fellows were involved in the day-to-day runnings of the organization, and were present at some of their most important meetings. Lansky has
Why have that rule then?
been referred to as the mob's accountant. Siegel's officially sanctioned and personal killing sprees continued until the mid-1930s, when he got into it big with some other gangsters. And Luciano and Lansky felt that the best thing for him to do was go west and handle some operations out there in order to avoid problems in the east. He was going to Los Angeles, baby, the city of angels. Or in Siegel's case, the city of the angel of death. Oh, Christ. That's just what Los Angeles needs. More Jews. You weren't recording, were you?
Yes.
That's not edited out.
Look, cut it out, Peter.
I'm not doing that.
Cut this out. Cut this out, Peter! With Bugsy Siegel now operating out of Los Angeles, he got to wet his beak at the other things he was really good at, other than murder. Gambling. The dude was making a killing off of legitimate and illegal gambling operations, just raking in the dough for himself and his bosses back east in New York. It's around this time that you can see Siegel's desire to delve into more legitimate ventures, like his friend Lansky had already done. Bugsy didn't just want to be a hired thug, which he was really good at. Bugsy wanted to be looked at as a real business leader.
He wants to better himself and not just be good at killing people, maybe.
And he wanted to be accepted into the new Los Angeles society, where back in New York, he was just some street thug operating in the criminal underworld. I get that. I took acting roles for years that had me playing weirdos, morons, creeps, psychopaths, and losers. Like Siegel and his ability to kill, I didn't mind it. It was just a job. But I definitely wanted to try some more serious stuff, so I started going behind the camera more and got to have serious titles like producer and director. But no amount of convincing myself I'm a big boy now for doing off-camera work will change the fact that I once wore a diaper in my friend's sketch.
He's actually an actor. I can't tell whether he's joking or not. Is he actually?
Been in a diaper a few times. And no amount of LA hobnobbing would change the fact that Bugsy Siegel was a stone-cold killer. Behind them is the casino bar, where you see one of the fattest, ugliest, pencil dick looking men you've ever seen in your life, chatting it up with some perfect 10 big jugged redhead who just randomly is sitting alone at a bar like that on the strip at that time of night. This matchup makes no sense at all.
No.
He is absolutely swept up by her, and the flirting is going good between both of them. This poor bastard has no idea that once he gets up to his room with her, the negotiation for money exchange will immediately commence. And even though he was too dumb to realize that she was a hooker beforehand, he's going to cave and fork over the money because a woman hasn't voluntarily slept with him in 12 years. And he really needs the experience before he goes back to the cement convention the next day. In Hollywood, Siegel became the belle of the ball. Big-time studio heads like Louis B. Mayer and Jack Warner were in his circle. Huge acting names like Cary Grant and Clark Gable buddied up to him, among other Hollywood legends. And since the movie industry was so profitable, Siegel moved into typical mob extortion rackets within that arena. But the funniest thing was that when Siegel was feeling a little light with cash and he owed dough to the bosses out east, he used to borrow money from A-list actors with zero intentions of paying them back because he looked at them as pussies who would never confront him for it. And he was right. And you gotta understand in all of this, nobody in Hollywood at that time knew what the Mafia was like we know today. It was still, for the most part, an underground enterprise that wasn't on the radar of federal law enforcement or popular society. They just thought he was some well-connected businessman from out east. not the absolute street thug that he was. So basically, all of them were cozying up to one of the biggest manipulators and bullies in America, thinking he could advance their careers. And he took advantage of them because there wasn't shit that they could do about it. He's Bugsy fucking Siegel, and they're a bunch of pussy-ass actors. Another big thing that was going on in the LA scene was Siegel's presence in general in that area. When he first was sent out there, Los Angeles mob boss Jack Dragna was basically told by Lucky Luciano that Siegel was in charge. Let me put this into some perspective. Dragna was an Italian who had grown up in the East Coast gangster world before calling dibs on the Los Angeles criminal underworld, which he had for years. Luciano and his East Coast mobsters were the big dicks running the show in the American Mafia apparatus. And since it truly was a national syndicate, they had power over him and were able to tell him what was up. Dragna was being told by a fellow Italian that this Jewish guy was going to be running the show, and he had to conform, or else. Long story.
How did he feel about that? Because something tells me he's not just going to roll over and accept it. He's going to be feeling a little bit sore about it.
Story short, Bugsy was eventually ran out of Los Angeles. What had happened was, Siegel was arrested and tried for the murder of another Jewish gangster in his circle, which he absolutely was responsible for. Though he was acquitted because of typical mafia strong-arm tactics where witnesses decide they don't want to testify anymore. But at that point, all of these Hollywood types, both on and off camera, who thought Benjamin Siegel was a high-powered businessman that was cool, realized that Benjamin Siegel was a high-powered businessman that murders people. Still, some of them were willing to go along for the ride with him. That's when you see the Cholo standing over by the elevator. Is he here to deal drugs? Is he in Vegas to just gamble and have fun? Is he waiting for that busty redhead to come back downstairs so he can collect his cut of the money? Or is he one of those cholos that did like 8 years in the pen, found Jesus, and preaches the good word to strangers in hellholes like Las Vegas? And the only reason he still dresses like that is it's the only way he's ever known to dress. So even though people may still look at him as a gangbanger, he actually genuinely loves the word of Jesus Christ. We don't know why that cholo is standing there. We may never know. Las Vegas was the perfect place for Bugsy Siegel to begin the next generation of his operations. Like I said, the guy, other than murder, was a master of the gambling business. And Nevada had legalized gambling in 1931. This was a revolutionary piece of legislation that opened the doors for Nevada to become a hub of a basic American want that had been criminalized for years, just like alcohol was in the 20s. The only problem was that Las Vegas was a podunk cow town in the middle of the desert with a population of 8,000. And how could you convince anyone in big glamorous cities like Los Angeles to drive 4 hours to engage in their gambling itch? Easy. Bugsy Siegel had the connections with cool people to make Las Vegas a destination for the rich Hollywood elites and attract other rich folks from the West Coast. Las Vegas was going to be, in his vision, a place for the most glamorous, rich, and famous to cut loose.
Like a secondary kind of Hollywood type place?
He also saw that with the completion of the Hoover Dam that pumps electricity into the city, and with the old school law enforcement infrastructure that could easily be manipulated through bribes, Vegas was ripe for the taking and ripe for the building. Hooray, corruption, the all-American story. With the exception of some dingy local casinos around Fremont Street and a couple around downtown Vegas, US Highway 91, which would later become known as the Las Vegas Strip, was to be the model of this new concept of luxurious casino and hotel resorts. It went down like this. Siegel's old childhood friend, Mo Sedway, was already posted up in Vegas in early 1946. Billy Wilkerson, a Los Angeles-based businessman, had already purchased the land and planned to develop a casino hotel there. The only problem was that Wilkerson didn't have enough money to make it happen.
To build.
So that's when Sedway and Siegel got involved and got 2/3 interest in the operation. That's a polite way of saying that they forced Wilkerson to cough up his cut of the project. because they were gangsters, and gangsters will always take the give it to us or else approach to business matters. By that summer, Siegel was running the entire operation. It was going to be his vision and no one else's. It was going to be the Flamingo Casino and Hotel.
What made him call it the Flamingo? What is there a reason behind that name even? It sounds like harmless, but kind of, you know, flamboyant and not fancy, but fun.
Here's where they started running into problems. The project was supposed to only cost around $1 million. Okay. By the time of its opening in December of 1946, the budget had ballooned to over $6 million.
How much would that be the equivalent of these days?
And make no mistake, this was primarily due to Siegel's mismanagement and being in way over his head in his quest to become a legitimate business leader.
Oh no.
Bugsy did the killing and gambling part of being a mobster really well.
So well.
But he was no Meyer Lansky.
Not.
Speaking of Meyer Lansky,
not the project
Lansky
management.
And the rest of the East Coast bosses were starting to ask a lot of questions about what was going on with the money. Their money. And Bugsy Siegel was not giving them the answers they needed because Siegel had spiraled into a cycle of dodging their questions and flat out lying to them. But perhaps his biggest mistake was he was skimming from the project for his personal use.
There's always skimming. Skimming that cream off the top, eh?
That's a cardinal sin in the Mafia world. You don't mess with the boss's money. The casino finally opened to pretty decent fanfare on December 26, 1946. Pick up sticks. Siegel leveraged his Hollywood connections to get a lot of the big stars of the day to attend the opening. But the place briefly closed down in February of 47 because they had botched finishing the construction of the hotel portion of the property. It was also around this time that Siegel forced Wilkerson out of the company completely. The company belonged to Bugsy Siegel now, and he got to enjoy complete ownership of the thing for a few months before he was assassinated at his Beverly Hills home in June of 1947.
I think he just got greedy. You know, at this point, you've managed to swindle the business. You know, you're basically the owner. Stop cutting corners. You know, you're going to have to put funds in to maintain and build and make sure everything's up to standard. That's all she had to do. And not steal money, you know, that cream. You didn't have to do that and it would have been fine. Maybe.
Even though he got the Flamingo scene to completion, his constant lying and using the operation as his personal piggy bank got to be too much for the New York bosses. Not even his old friend Meyer Lansky could defend him anymore. No. There have been a few theories about his murder, but the one that seems to stick the most was that a meeting of the bosses in Havana, Cuba, one where Meyer Lansky and Lucky Luciano were in attendance, ended with the conclusion that Bugsy had to go. Mickey Cohn, one of Siegel's lieutenants, and Jack Dragna soon got into a much publicized gang war over who was going to be running Las Vegas. But control was eventually seized by the East Coast mobsters.
Not true.
Oh God. The worst group of people you ever saw are all congregated at the bar the fat fuck and the prostitute just left. Influencers. This is Las Vegas, a major convention hub in the United States. And conventions attract industries. And in the world we live in today, every single industry has some sort of influencer subculture that shits out content for clicks. Fitness, video games, guns, makeup, military, spirituality, politics, food. If it's a popular thing that exists, there's going to be some influencers along for the ride, nipping off the teat of giant businesses and brands, hoping to get some of that sweet brand deal nectar.
What, you
They're
word it
all
like that?
taking selfies with each other and saying things like, "Oh my God, I loved your last video. We totally have to do a collab together." These people don't even know each other, but they act like they're best friends because the most important currency to them is likes. And every opportunity for them to snatch a selfie with somebody slightly more popular than them is an opportunity to grow. Every social interaction is an unspoken business interaction.
Yeah.
There's no depth to anything that comes out of their mouths because they only exist for that quick dopamine rush of a viral video and a brand deal that will last 6 months before they're cut loose for not making their deliverables in a timely manner because they have dog shit work ethic. The fact that they're up this late tells you everything you need to know about them. For whatever big industry event that is going on, the real movers and shakers will be up attending meetings in a few hours. They'll be passed out in their hotel room. But the biggest reason you hate them is because you hate yourself. Because when you first started coming to Vegas for work 12 or so years ago, you wasted your time in the same cycle of stupidity as them. And now you're over 40 and in a constant state of fatigue, and you find more enjoyment in judging them than living life like them. Because the only thing you have going on in your life is your ability to recognize your own hypocrisy. So you're gonna sit down next to some Koreans on the penny slots, rip a bunch of cigs, and blow $20 on 80-cent bets until you have to be to your work obligation in an hour. Bugsy Siegel didn't invent Las Vegas, but he rebranded it. Before him, Vegas was a dusty railroad stop with smoky, low-rent gambling halls for locals and Hoover Dam workers. Siegel looked at the desert and saw something insane. Hollywood glamour, legal gambling, and East Coast mob money all colliding in one place. The Flamingo was the first true casino resort. Pools, palm trees, celebrities, and luxury in the middle of nowhere. He overspent, lied to the mob, and got himself killed.
Got greedy.
But the idea worked. Almost immediately after his death, the Flamingo turned profitable, proving that Vegas wasn't about quick rackets anymore. It was about scale. The mob's real legacy in Las Vegas wasn't violence, it was infrastructure. Organized crime money built the Strip, normalized skimming, and standardized casino operations, and turned gambling into a polished tourist industry. For decades, mob bosses ran Vegas quietly, treating casinos like ATMs while keeping the city relatively orderly, because chaos scares off customers. Eventually, corporations muscled them out in the 1970s and 80s, cleaned up the image, but they did keep the blueprint. That's the irony. Las Vegas today, mega resorts, themed hotels, nonstop excess, is a corporate version of a mobster's dream. Bugsy died broke and bleeding, but the city he imagined never stopped printing money. And now it's a city to be enjoyed by the entire world, which means you get the high rollers and the dregs of society walking through those doors. Like, subscribe, share, hit that notification button, and don't forget that you can get exclusive episodes of Jacked History on Pepperbox TV. All right, Peter, I need to talk to you about that money you owe me. Don't you lie to me. Like I said, it's like 4 in the morning. The early morning commercial flight crews are checking out at the front desk to start their 6 a.m. leg after going balls to the wall the day before. You recognize the first officer in the crew and a flight attendant from about 10 hours prior when you were walking down to the hotel store to get a bottle of water and a candy bar. They're in their airline uniforms ready to start work now, but they were definitely in their normal attire while they were having drinks 10 hours earlier. And they both have rings on their fingers. And it's clear neither of them are married to each other. And they were talking in a way that crossed the boundaries of two colleagues having a drink after work, and it looked more flirtatious. But you're less concerned about the fact that two married people might cheat with each other, and more concerned with the fact that you saw like 6 empty drinks on the table. And you're doing the math on how many drinks that pilot was having and how long ago it was. You have a flight back home tomorrow on a Boeing 737 MAX 8, and you're now stressing over the fact that your pilots might be hungover Vegas booze hounds who are responsible for getting you and 174 other souls home to their final destination.
Oh, no! Jack, why would you put that idea in my head? I'm paranoid about flying. Okay, I don't think Jack is the biggest fan of Las Vegas. I had absolutely no idea that the entire premise of Vegas, basically, you know, I know there's other things to do in Vegas than basically gamble and drink, but that side of things is basically been created by the Mafia. absolutely no idea. It kind of makes sense. So the Flamingo, I still want to know the origin of the name of that place. Why Flamingo? What a peacock. Yeah, okay, it kind of makes sense. I get it. But yeah, I want to know the origin of that name. So that was the first gambling casino kind of place of its kind. Kind of crazy to think that the infrastructure, like the way that Las Vegas was run, the blueprint, like Jack said, has just been adopted by corporations, and it runs exactly in exactly the same kind of way, just legally and not by the mafia. It's very, very interesting. I've not heard any of these names before, but like I said, I've only seen like a handful of like kind of mafia films, you know, the more well-known ones, I suppose. So I just don't think I'm particularly in the know about an awful lot of it. I have heard, is it Luciano? Where have I heard that before? Do you know what who he looks like rather? You know, in The Simpsons, they've got, I can't remember his name, they've got their mafia, haven't they? Fat Tony. And there's one tight-lipped someone. He never grasses on anyone. He never snitches. He looks similar to Luciano. I wonder if he's based on him. Guys, I hope you enjoyed watching along with me. And thank you so much for requesting this video, Dr. Mobius. Very, very interesting. Guys, take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.